Mr. President, Madam President, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, from what you have heard so far, you might have already guessed that you found yourself in a most peculiar place. The European Parliament is the institution first that has been governed by the same political coalition from time immemorial, rather unusual in any nation state, with predictably unfortunate consequences. Second, the coalition is decidedly left-wing, with the EPP and Donald Tusk follow suit, more and more radical, and tries to enforce their leftist views on the entire world, recently, believe it or not, on the American state of Texas. Three, it has no understanding for dissent and therefore surrounds the dissenting groups by a cordon sanitaire, which is quite an effective way of neutralizing the opposition. And fourth, it has managed to establish a tyranny of the majority that controls everything from administration to the distribution of the key political position. So once you keep this in mind, you will understand why this Parliament has been waging a cold war against and trying to destabilize conservative governments in Europe, and why, to achieve this end, they have been violating the basic principles of the treaties and made up the ad hoc rules that are not there. And in this inglorious task, they have been unfortunately seconded by other institutions, including the European Commission, which, at least since the times of Jean-Claude Juncker and Mr. Timmermans, became a political institution, strongly partisan, ideological, and arrogant. The principles of conferral, subsidiarity, and proportionality explicitly inscribed in the Article 5 were thrown overboard. To give an example, tomorrow there will be another chapter of Poland bashing because of our abortion law. That such matters as abortion are exclusively the competences of the nation state, who cares? The majority can outvote any restraining rule. If making 2 + 2 5 were to hurt the Polish government, they would not hesitate to put it to vote. And you know what? Chances are that they would have it carried. Having got rid of the basic principles of the treaties, they came up with their own rules, which don't exist in the treaties and which the treaties preclude. The first product of their inventive genius came from the Commission, and it was the rule of law framework. And that's then its parliamentary offspring, the rule of conditionality, an absolute outrage, a sheer monstrosity from a legal and moral point of view. So what? Might is right. The newest gizmo is the primacy of the EU law. In various public statements, this phrase has been immersed in a typical EU gobbledygook. But I would like to know what exactly you mean by making this claim, Madam President. There is not a word about it in the treaties. Where did you take it from? If not from the treaties, then where from? And what do you think it means? That the European law trumps the national law in the areas over which the EU has exclusive competences? This is a rather commonsensical statement. Nobody questions it. That the European law trumps the national law in the areas over which the EU does not have any competence? But this is absurd. It would be like the primacy of the European law over the law of the state of Texas. I'm sure that the majority of my colleagues in this chamber would want precisely this, but this does not make it any less absurd. Or perhaps By primacy, you mean that the European institutions will decide which areas are under their competence and which are not. And the national institutions will have no power to oppose their decision. But this is a very dangerous concept, extremely dangerous, because it gives the EU omnipotence and omniscience it does not have, it cannot have, and to be frank, it does not deserve. Over the last decade, the EU has turned out unable to restrain itself and respect the limits imposed by the principles of conferral, subsidiarity, and proportionality. The trust that it will stay within the treaties in the years to come is gone. You see, Madam President, we are not afraid of European law. We are afraid of European lawlessness, of the tyranny of the majority, of an abuse of power, of the cavalier use of the treaties, despite what one can see in the Parliament and in the Commission. Might is not right.